like I always thought like give me a knife, like I could fight a bear, like,
Yeah.
a grown bear. I realized I was wrong because they could be like 11 feet tall. But you know, I could fight a wolf if I had to.
A wolf?
Yeah,
But they
like
travel in packs.
okay, if it's just one wolf, like imagine just like Mortal Kombat, like we're just like in arena, just me versus the wolf. Like I think I could take it.
Maybe.
Maybe I
Because
believe
it's just
myself.
like a large dog.
Yeah.
But have you ever seen a wolf's teeth compared to like a dog's teeth?
No.
They're like twice as big.
Oh yeah.
All right. Ready?
I thought we already started, but all right.
All right.
I'm begging you to see that if you were to just let go, all of the things that you're terrified of and all of the things that bring you pain and all of the things that have been a tragedy in your life will become something beautiful. You let go of that coin and you let God hold on to you and you will become a different person. We all hide things in our closet, and this channel is about pulling those things out of the dark and facing them.
What's up, guys? It's Pastor Jordan. I'm here with my friend Andy, and I've known you since I was like 9. So since we were like 9.
Since we were like kids in elementary.
Yeah, in elementary school.
Yeah, it's definitely weird seeing Jordan the way he is now because I hated him back in the day. You're terrible.
I don't remember.
You're
Like,
terrible.
people tell
You
me
were
that all
just-
the time, but I don't
you were
remember the
just
things
so
I did.
mean. I just remember you would just say mean things to me, and I remember like sometimes like we'd be cool, but like, and there'd be other times where I was like, "You're just an asshole." And I remember you've always been athletic.
Yeah.
I remember one time we were playing football, and I remember you took off your shoes because you said it helped you run.
Oh,
faster.
yeah, yeah.
And I remember I saw you running, and I was like, oh my god, like he's so fast. Like it's weird that this chubby white kid is running so fast. And then you came in middle school.
Yeah,
and you were
in grade.
just so timid. And I remember did you play the trumpet?
No, I never got to do band, but I had played the trumpet.
I remember you would walk around with something, didn't you?
I don't remember what it
I
was.
think you were walking around like an instrument.
I used to
thought it was
bring
the
like
funniest
I used to
thing.
bring my electric guitar. Like I used to hang out with all the like the nerdy kids. You know?
Yeah, I know
So I
exactly
used to
which
bring my
ones.
guitar, and I used to like. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, it was funny. And then you were just so timid and quiet. And I was
Yeah,
like, what
because I was
happened?
afraid of everybody because I was always moving around.
Yeah. And then, and then I guess once you loosened up, I remember you used to be you've always had a lot of energy.
Yeah.
When you would do, what was it, the scissor leg kick takedown?
Scissor leg takedown.
I hated those. I hated that. You never got me though.
I'll put what a scissor leg takedown is in the edit so you guys know what
Okay,
it is. But
yeah.
I used to do this to everybody all the time, and then like when I did it, I would yell out scissor leg takedown really
Yeah,
loud.
it was bad. I was scared in track. I was definitely terrified.
It's because when I started wrestling and I really liked it, so I was like learning everything, but like
Yeah.
I was learning on the internet, so I was just like doing things that I saw online.
Yeah. Could you actually do that in like a wrestling match?
Yeah, if you wanted to.
Did you ever?
No,
Why?
I did an arm throw though
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
on a really
That's
really
impressive.
like chubby kid.
Yeah.
and he started crying.
I remember because you were fighting heavyweight,
Mhm.
but you would fight like everybody else. You
Yeah.
weren't just like sumo wrestling out there. I was very
Yeah,
impressed.
That's true. So, this is my friend Andy. We're not just going to talk about random stuff the whole time. But I'm really excited for him to come do this video with me because we were talking at one point and we started talking about God and about other things. And I was thinking this conversation is so good that I want other people to be able to see it and to know. First of all, that not all Christians avoid deep talks and not all Christians avoid like being asked questions. And then the fact that it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to not know everything, and it's okay to like, we all come from different walks and we all learn things in different ways, and that's okay, and that's a part of growing, as if we're learning together and we're willing to hear other people's opinions. And so what would you consider your like religious background, belief?
Okay, if you ask my mom, I was born a Catholic.
Right.
I was raised kind of Catholic. I was going to like catechism, which is like Sunday school, but it was like during the week.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say I don't think I really had the best experience from it. It was just a little weird, and I guess definitely like from an early age, I kind of didn't agree with certain stuff. And like where I can say is where I'm at right now, just because like I feel like it, like you know your faith it changes every day. It's not like 100% every single day because that'd be crazy. And I think like now at my point in life, on my worst days, I feel like I'm like a deist. Or like I believe like there's God, but he's kind of like doing his own thing. He doesn't have as much connection with us.
Right.
And then on good days, I feel like he is around us, but he does give us a little bit more free will than stuff like that. And I'm not trying to become more religious, but a little bit more like spiritual, kind of find like a little bit of deeper connection. So yeah.
I get that. I would say, like, for me too, like my religion changes daily, but it's not my religion, it's my relationship.
Yeah.
Right? So tomorrow the connection that we have will be different than what it was today, just
Yeah.
because time passes, and like the only way it would never change is if you say the same thing to each other every single day.
Yeah.
And that, like, for me, I grew up being taught Catholic stuff too, and so that was the experience. It's like you pray the same thing over and over again,
Yeah.
and you never like really understand that God may want a relationship with you.
Yeah, and like I think it's a little bit weird with like Catholicism. Like I feel like it's definitely a little bit more strict, and I guess I always kind of had like a problem with that. Just kind of like being told like, hey, like this is what you gotta do, or if you sin, you just gotta go to confession. You're gonna be fine.
Right.
I feel like it was like my experience from like the two times I went to confession. It seemed more like, all right, you're good. And I was like, oh, we're not going to talk about why I'm doing
Right.
bad things or why I'm doing this. It was like, no, like 10 Hail Marys, this and that, try to be better, and you can move along.
I remember the first time my grandma told me to go to confession, and it was the same thing. Like, I went in and they're like, tell me your sin. I didn't know what to expect. Like, I didn't go through catechism as well as everybody else, so I didn't know
Yeah.
what they were going to do. And they're like, tell me all your sins. So I like said some stuff, and they're like, okay, now go pray all this. And I didn't do it. I just went and sat back down.
Sinner.
And then my uncle was like, hey, didn't he tell you to pray some things? And I was like, yeah. He's like, go kneel up there and do it. And I was like, this is just embarrassing. Like, I don't understand the point of this.
It's definitely a little weird. And I remember being so scared right before confession, because I was like, they're going to be angry at me or I'm going to get some sort of reaction. And I think it was a little bit worse that I didn't get any reaction. I think I didn't get anything. And like, I don't know, maybe it's just because like I don't have as strong as a relationship. Sometimes I feel that like God isn't going to give us all the answers. I always like to think of the saying, God helps those who help themselves. And I feel like just like praying away your problems doesn't really. I think you got to address your problems. I think there's certain things you kind of have to address.
I get that. I think that, like, that saying, people say that, but it's not in the Bible. But there's some truth to it and also, like, some lie, I think. Because God wants you to be active and, like, investing in yourself and
Yeah.
changing things. And, like, when he says something is the way that it is, well, then you either conform to it or you're not going to.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's up to you to make those choices. And sometimes, like, there's a lot of things when God talks about the fact that you can't change them on your own. And so you pray to him and he gives you the strength, but you're still actively involved. Like, it's not just, you can't pray anything away and then it works out for you.
Yeah. It's
Right.
not the movies.
No,
Anything like
it's
that.
usually you're praying and God will continue to guide you on how you're supposed to change things.
Yeah. Because, like, I know, like, whenever, like, I'm, having a hard time or I'm unsure of things, like, when I do pray, I never ask for, like, the answers. I always ask for, like, the strength or, like, to help me, like, find whatever it is I'm looking for or the things I'm kind of needing.
Right.
I feel like I don't want answers, I guess, yeah, that's how I kind of feel. Like, I don't want just, like, answers. I want, like, the process and kind of, like, the discovery of things.
I think it has to be that too, because if somebody just tells you all the answers, it's not, like, there's a difference between coming to an answer on your own
Yeah.
and somebody just telling you. If you come to it on your own, it is yours. But if somebody just tells you, it's easy for it to kind of just go over.
Yeah. And it it makes me a little nervous and a little scared when somebody does have all the answers. It makes me very suspicious. And like that one time when we talked, like when we were hanging out at my house and I was asking you questions, I did like is that you didn't know all the answers, but you still gave me like your opinion on certain things. You still kind of, it wasn't like, oh, okay, this is this is this. Like, no, you kind of like were unsure of certain things, and that's what I wanted. I don't want somebody who knows everything.
I get that. But I think it's important for people, and that's why I wanted you to come do this video with me and not somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I think that even though we see things differently, you have come to your conclusions because you think for yourself.
Yeah.
And I've come to my conclusions because I think for myself. Like, I haven't followed somebody into it, and I don't.
Even though
just,
you're
like,
wrong, that's okay.
I don't just like blindly hold on to it. I have reasons for the things
Yeah.
that I believe. But Andy came with some questions,
Yes.
and so we're going to talk about those.
Yeah. And like, I think it's important to just have discussions about like everything, like no matter what. I think it's important to talk because like you have certain experiences that I haven't experienced, and for you to kind of share those with me might help enlighten me or help me see different things.
Right.
And I hope I do the same way. And I think it's just important to kind of open up dialogues with everybody, even if you don't agree with them. But okay, I guess my first question is, I guess we'll go a little. Why should we trust the Bible?
So everything comes down, I think, to a worldview. And a worldview is kind of like your presuppositions about things.
Okay.
And so if your worldview is that God is real and the God of the Bible is real, then you automatically take the Bible for truth. But also, like, it's not as easy as just saying, well, this book's true and that's it. Because there's so many things that have come against and put themselves against the Bible. Right? So in the Bible, it says that this is God's word and it says that you should trust it. And so I take that. But then a lot of people run into problems when it's, when people say, well, you can't trust the Bible because of this or that.
Yeah. I've heard like some of the common, like, I guess, like, arguments against it is that it's been translated from so many different languages, or the fact that it was written by man. It was people writing their accounts, or there's even like, I don't know if I'd call it conspiracy theory, but there's those people who are saying that there were specific books left out of the Bible. So like, I don't know. That's just like what I've heard, like the argument against believing the Bible.
So the first one is that it's translated so many times.
Yeah.
And so looking into it, like, because I've had to study all this, and like I even did, if you go on my channel and you go back, it's like 20-year-old explains the Bible or whatever. I talk about it, but the idea is that we have the translation, the King James Version.
Yeah.
And people begin to question it, and people begin to say, well, I don't know, it's been translated so many times. It started in Hebrew and Greek, and then it went to Latin or German, and then it gets to English. And how do we know after so many years that it's trustable? And most people, a lot of Christians, like, they give crappy answers. They're just kind of, well, I have blind faith. And I don't think that's good enough. But so I think it was like in the 1940s, we discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls, which it was just some farmer, and he lost a sheep or whatever, and he found a cave, and he went in the cave and he found like pottery, and he found scrolls of the Bible.
Really?
Yeah, in the 40s.
I didn't know that.
And so this is after the King James. The King James was written in 1611, and so this is way, way after. This is in 1940s, and so, but they dated these scrolls to 1,000 years before any like manuscript that we had of the Bible. So he found all these like notes of the Bible.
Yeah.
1,000 years before anything we had.
What?
And so then what they did was they said, okay, well, here's the earliest manuscript that we have. Let's finally get an answer. Let's test it against our English Bible that we have today and see if it's really that different. It was 98% accurate, with the only inaccuracies being like slips of the pen, or like somebody wrote something and they had bad handwriting or something like that. Like it wasn't anything that was like changing it doctrinally. It wasn't anything that changed the message of what God was saying. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of different things like that. And so now, today, like, we are assured that we have a more accurate Bible than we did like 1,000 years ago, which I think is interesting. But a lot of people, like Christians, don't spend enough time looking into these things to be able to say, well, it's not completely like blind faith, because when they don't have an answer, that's just what they say. But all that does is turn somebody off. Yeah. Just kind of, well, I'm not going to believe them because it's not logical.
Yeah. Or like a lot of answers, or like a lot of people have kind of told me, oh, just like read the Bible. And I'm just like, but I have questions about it. Like,
right.
Why am I going to turn to the thing that I'm questioning for answers?
Right. If you don't necessarily trust this yet, why are you going to go search into it?
Yeah.
And not enough Christians and not enough people are prepared to ask those questions and prepared to say, well, I don't know, but... and then as far as like it being written by man, I get that too. But it's also interesting because the Bible talks about the men being inspired by God, and God was speaking through them, and they understood what they were saying, but God was the one giving them, the words and the messages. And so the Bible has 66 books in it, and it's written by a lot of different authors, like over thousands, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. And so you have people from Genesis, like people think that, I think it's Moses wrote Genesis, and then you have all the way into the New Testament with like John, and this is thousands of years in between. But all of these books put together over thousands of years with different authors, they never contradict each other. Like the message is always the
Very
same.
interesting.
And so, and people will say that they find contradictions in the Bible, but it's not so much contradictions in the Bible as it is in their understanding of what the verse is saying. And so if like you don't read it in context,
Yeah.
you can say, well, this doesn't match up with this. But then if you really
Can you give me
actually
an
look at
example
it,
of that?
So like in the Gospels, the 4 different Gospels, people will say that they don't match up because the stories are different. And so when you try to put them together, you'll say, well, this one says that Jesus did this here, and this one says that Jesus did this miracle here, and they don't match up. Or this one says that this person said this, or this one says that this person did this, and so it doesn't match up. But if you study it in context and like you put the whole story together, you realize that Jesus preached the same thing in two different places, or something like that. I can't think of a specific one off the top of my head.
What do you mean he preached? Like he was in different places at once?
No, like he
okay.
preached the same message two
okay.
different times.
Okay. I was about to say like, oh man, like I'd never heard that miracle.
No.
Okay.
So like people, it's usually when people are choosing to not,
Yeah.
like I said, the worldview. So they've already decided for themselves that they don't want to believe the Bible could be true. They don't want to open that door. And so they look for things when really it's just as easy to say, no, it fits.
Yeah.
Like it works out if you just were to read it enough and look at it.
And I think even from like, if you don't necessarily believe the Bible to be true, I still think that there's a lot of interesting stories and like there's good messages. If you look at it not just from like, trying to find a word of God, I think there's a lot of like interesting facts and like or different things that they talk about. That's why I kind of like. I've read it. I haven't read in depth, but like the few parts that I have read, I thought it was really interesting to kind of see the way people were back in the day, and that always kind of turned me on towards it, or like put me.
I think
kept
what's
me
interesting
interested.
too is that like people are so ready to discredit the Bible, but the Bible is historically accurate, like to a T.
Yeah.
So when it talks about years or people being in rule or things going on, it's completely accurate with like the other historical literature that we have. And then even things like with the prophecies, like there's God saying in the Bible 1,000 years before, and we know it's written 1,000 years before because we have the manuscripts and we can date them, but saying that such thing is going to happen, or this nation's going to come under control, or something like that, and then it happens exactly how he says, and it never falters, and there's hundreds and hundreds of like things that God says is going to happen, and then they end up happening later on.
What I liked was when I was going to school at SFA, there's one guy named Jordan, and he worked for Greek Wide, and they just talked to like people like in fraternities, sororities about like God and stuff like that. And I remember asking him like, how does it match up like historically? And I remember he pulled out like a bunch of sheets of papers of like different like things from different historians talking about like the stuff that was going on like during Jesus' time, and them kind of commentating on what was going on.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting, the fact that there was some like connection between like actual history, that this isn't just like a fantasy book,
And that's where there's like a middle ground, because there's Christians who just tell you like, oh, have blind faith and figure it out.
Yeah.
But then there's atheists who will tell you like, oh, Jesus never existed. But there's historical proof.
Yeah.
And so then you have to come in, and then the Gospels are accurate as far as like being copied and as far as like what they said. But then you just come to the idea of, well, are you just going to believe what it says, or are you not, right?
Yeah.
And so then you have to, it's called I think it's called like the psycho, the liar, or the truth. And so basically it's 3 principles. Like if John was really writing down everything that Jesus said, and this is exactly what Jesus said, then he's either telling the truth, and he really is the only way to be saved, and everything in there is true, or he's a liar, or he's crazy. Because those are the only 3 that you can have. And like, so a lot of people will say what you say, and they'll say, well, I don't know what I'm going to believe, but I know that there's a lot of good messages.
Yeah.
But then it's contradictory, because there's a lot of good messages, but there's also a lot of things that he said that are like, if you don't believe them to be true, are kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And so, but it's inconsistent with somebody's character. Like somebody isn't that way.
Yeah.
Where half of them is like good ideas, and then half of them is psycho.
Yeah.
And so you have to decide for yourself, is he lying, or is he crazy, or is what he's saying true? And for people who say that he's lying, like to the point of being tortured and dying, would you hold on to that lie?
No.
And then to the point of being crazy, would that many people agree with you and
Yeah.
follow you? And would it be so consistent with everything else that people wrote before and after? Like, it's hard to just call him crazy.
Yeah.
And it's hard to just call him a liar. It's almost impossible, because so many people died for that lie, if it's a lie.
Yeah.
And so many people believed that that he was sane if he's crazy. So it kind of puts you at like a...
But like, people have died for crazy people before. Like, there's been people who were just very good at talking and very persuasive, and we've seen it throughout history where you'll have a leader who really inspires everybody. Like, Hitler was a really good politician, but his message ended up being really crazy. And I kind of get what you're saying, but I think there is a possibility to be crazy and to kind of, I don't know, I want to say the truth, but like, to be crazy and be able to kind of
Catch vision with
catch
people.
vision, kind of catch like people like with you.
I get that.
But the fact that there are, like you were saying, that it does hold true from what he's saying to like everybody else. I believe in coincidences. I think there is coincidence, but for it to happen on that such a level, it
Such
is
a
little
large
interesting.
scale,
It's very interesting for it to see that. So, why hasn't there been additions to the Bible? Like, did we just stop? Like, we're not gonna add additions? Because even like with the Constitution, like, we still have amendments
Yeah.
that are being put in. It's like,
So, like, I hear a bunch of like funny answers when people will say like,
tell me a funny one.
so atheists will say like the Bible is not a history book,
Yeah,
right? And so then Christians will say, I know it doesn't need to be changed every 4 years.
yeah,
Or like not a science textbook, or like they try to say that the Bible can't keep up
yeah.
with how like we change as a society.
That is true.
And that's most
Yeah,
people's
that kinda
argument.
makes sense.
But at
When
the
I say
same,
like every 100 years, just like let's one more book, one more edition.
see, but I think that that's the problem, and this is where some Christians will disagree and
Yeah.
get kind of like crazy with it. And so the thing is that when Jesus died, and when all of the apostles who followed him like directly died, that was the end of like the period of revelation, as far as like God
Yeah.
speaking through men with new
So
messages.
no more sequels.
No more sequels.
No more sequels.
But
Okay.
what that protects people from, because there's Christians who will disagree with that.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, no, God can still give special messages and revelations, and they're outside of the Bible, or they're adding on to this, it's a new revelation from God. It's a new message. But then the people say, it's a new revelation from God. It's a new message. If you give me all your money, God's going to make you rich.
Yeah,
So that's the problem that you run into.
that is true. Well,
It's a new revelation. It's a new message. And then it's exactly what you're talking about. Drink this Kool-Aid. So
Yeah.
when you have, like,
That
that's
is
that's
very
why
true.
it's closed. That's why it's a closed book. God said everything he needed to say, and you either
That's crazy.
hold on to it
I
or you
never
don't.
thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's interesting. So it's to kind of prevent like cults,
Yeah. Not to prevent it, but just
to kind of discourage.
that's a benefit of it.
Yeah.
But God put a capstone on everything he did, right? So the idea of the Bible is that at the fullness of time, that's what the Bible
Yeah.
calls it. Like, the center of time for God in his plan was when Jesus died for us. And so everything before him dying for us is leading up to it, and everything after is pointing back to it. And so even in the Bible, everything before the crucifixion is leading up to it, and everything after it is pointing back to it and pointing to what God's future is for us.
Okay, so if now, like, people talk about like miracles, or this is crazy, this shouldn't have happened, and it's a sign from God, we're so quick to disprove those, or to like kind of reject those,
So,
or
like,
to question
reject
those.
miracles?
Yeah, now, but we're so quick to accept miracles that happened way before we were born. That confuses me.
So I think it comes back to like the liar, psycho, truth teller again,
Yeah.
and then also like, so in the Bible, this is the problem with like the way that Christianity has turned today, because what somebody would call a miracle today isn't what the Bible would define as a miracle.
What does the Bible define as a miracle?
Something that was provable, something that was recorded. And so when it talks about a miracle in the Bible, it'll say, this woman was sick for 7 years, and everybody knew it. Or this man was blind, and everybody knew him as the blind man. And there's so many like
Very creative names. The
Yeah.
blind man, yeah. It's
There-
a little on the nose, but that's fine.
there's so many eyewitness accounts of like, this man was sick with an easy to see disease. It was something that was recordable. Yeah, like leprosy.
Yeah.
It's obvious. Like, that's something, he's sick. There's no denying it.
Mhm.
But with things today, it's like headaches. It's you have back problems because one foot is longer than the other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull on your shoe a little bit and make your leg grow to convince you that it's a miracle.
Yeah.
So that you can give me your money because I get a special revelation
Do
from
you
God.
take card?
Yes, I
If
take
you can
card.
fix my back problems, I got you.
Okay, I'm just going to pull your shoe out a little
Shoot,
bit.
okay.
But
I
like,
don't know if it's my feet, but
you get into these churches and they call you to the front of the church. That would make you nervous, right?
oh yeah,
That gives you enough adrenaline that you don't have a headache. It gives you enough
Yeah.
adrenaline that your back doesn't hurt at that moment
Yeah.
because you're so excited. But it's never something as if you have cancer, we're going to heal you.
Yeah.
It's never something as if
you can't pray the
have
sickness
this.
away.
No, not that way. If,
Yeah.
if God decides to do it, that's a miracle. So
Yeah.
I think, as far as what the Bible teaches us, it's that God upholds the universe in a
Yeah.
logical way, and sometimes he intervenes with miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that there are so many miracles in the Bible is because God was using those miracles to show that his message was true. Like, the miracles are only to prove that Jesus was a man of God,
Yeah.
so that he could share the message. It wasn't so that, people would give him his money, or people would get excited and be only focused on the miracles. The miracles were only to show that God was doing what he says he was doing through
Yeah.
these people. And today, like, you see a lot of counterfeits. You see a lot of people pretending and like getting excited.
Yeah.
But if those people were really healing and doing miracles, like, why aren't they in the hospitals? Why do they never make a hospital visit? Why do they never visit people who are on death row?
Yeah.
But in the Bible, that's exactly the people that they're reaching. It's the people who have been sick for so many years that people have completely outcast them and forgot about
Yeah.
them. And the other point that Jesus is making with those healings is that it doesn't matter how broken or sick you are, God still wants to have a relationship with you. It doesn't matter how messed up you are or how long you've been messed up, or whether or not society has completely abandoned you, God is still concerned with you.
Yeah.
So that's the point of those. But as far as miracles today, I think God still intervenes from time to time, but I think it's less and less through people, and I
Yeah.
think most of the people who are claiming to be miracle workers are liars and want your money.
So you said that like there are still like miracles that kind of happen. What's the criteria to determine like this is a miracle, like this should be accepted?
So for me, like with my epilepsy, like
that is crazy. Yeah.
it's testable, it's provable. I obviously had epilepsy.
I don't know.
I went to
always
the
had
EKG
theories that
machine,
you
but
didn't
I
have
just
it.
faked
That
it
was
to get
fake
out of
news.
school.
It was fake news. Jordan's fake
Sometimes
news.
I pretended to be worse than I was to get out of school. But I did
For
have
the most part,
epilepsy.
yeah,
I did have
yeah.
seizures. I went to the doctor, the neurologist, and
Yeah.
and I fought so hard because I went to the doctor and they said, "Well, you wouldn't remember a seizure. You didn't have one." And I said, "No, I had one. I remember my face hitting the ground." And they tested me and they're like, "Oh yeah, you do have epilepsy." But eventually,
Yeah.
it went away. And for me, like,
I didn't think you were gonna ever be able to drive.
I didn't either, because I kept, like, I would get, you have to be seizure free for like 6 months, but anytime I got close to like 2 or 3, it would happen again.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, dang, like it starts all over.
Ah, shucks.
I didn't get my
Yeah.
driver's license till I was like 19.
But I remember how much that changed you.
Hmm.
Because I remember, Jordan doing scissor leg takedowns
Yeah.
and ramming your head into stuff, being the bully that you were on the football field.
Yeah.
He would tackle his own players if they weren't fast enough to make the tackle on their own. Remember how many people you tackled?
Broke some collarbones.
Oh, you did.
So, but that's something that I'm obviously sick
Yeah.
with something.
Yeah, no, that.
And so I don't believe that there are like special new revelations, but I believe that God can speak to us individually if it doesn't contradict the
Yeah.
Bible.
God, the Bible, all that. How does it play like when it comes into science? You definitely came in way more prepared for this question than I was expecting.
I've had this talk with a lot of people.
And like, I'm glad it seems that like you're not just saying like, oh, it's because God tells me. Because then
Yeah.
I'd be like, ooh.
I have blind faith,
And
and
then
you
I'd
just
be
have
like,
to believe.
I'd be like, hey Jordan, I got a call.
Because it makes me sound
Yeah.
like a crazy person.
Yeah. Father Jordan schooling me again. I'm gonna get back to you on this one.